Hi, everybody, and welcome to our second last presentation of thank you for joining us this morning, and thank you to Sunil Zal from Inter Ellison for presenting just before. I have a really exciting next presentation for you. The topic is EDR, XDR, or MDR, which is right for your organization. And to talk us through that and let us know what is right for our organization is Phil Dimitriou, who is the APJ Director of Systems Engineering and Professional Services at Sophos. So he is going to be sharing his insights and letting you know what is right for your organization, whether it be EDR, XDR, or MDR. So Phil, I will hand it over to you and your presentation, and I will let you take over. So everyone, please welcome Phil.
Thank you very much, Isaac. Welcome and good morning, just good morning. Look, over the next 25 minutes or so, I look forward to sharing some insights into how I tackle a question I get quite often. As Isaac said, my name's Phil Dimitriou. I lead the APJ SEMPS group for Sophos. And the question that quite often comes not just my way, but across the SEs day to day, quite commonly, is commentary that goes along the lines, I know I need to extend my cybersecurity from purely protection to include detection and response. Should I be looking at MDR or XDR or EDR? So managed detection and response, extended detection or response, or EDR. Now, at the heart of our approach is making security intuitive to manage using Sophos Synchronised security. This provides, having essentially a central management platform for all your end-to-end security solutions and applications across these solutions. What we're driving moving forward, and you'll get an understanding of that through this presentation, is we're realizing a CISO's vision, and that of a closed loop automated system or platform, a platform that will leverage data collection from firewalls as well as product sensors, including input from third-party APIs, all via a centralized leveraging logs that are coming from a fully hydrated data lake. Now, this translates to greater visibility, detection, prevention, and the ability to deliver on targeted, actionable, and adaptive response that we need. MDR, EDR, or XDR, the result for organizations is improved risk management, greater efficacy in reducing their attack surface. So without further ado, let's jump in. So I'll quickly kick off with just some information here. This chart's taken from a Verizon data breach investigation report from 2020, showing the length of time breaches take to be detected. So in 2016, just under 70% of breaches, 68%, took months or more to detect. That was over 2/3. So during this time, effectively, the malicious actors were operating in stealth, traversing the network, or slowly exfiltrating data. By 2019, that had changed and had dropped to just over a quarter of breaches, but a huge improvement. And at the same time, most breaches were discovered in a day or less. Now, before we all start, jumping up and down and high-fiving, we should consider that the changing nature of threats today, since 2016, there's been a big increase, obviously, in ransomware attacks, which by their very nature, they're discovered early on in the piece as they begin encrypting systems. So still, one reason for the positive change has been increased realization that organizations must focus more on detection and response, because there's just so many examples where threats get past preventive mechanisms and preventive controls. I rarely talk to an organization that disagrees with that particular point here. So let's quickly take a step back and consider what we're trying to achieve in cybersecurity. And for this, I'll use the 5 boxes that you see here on the screen based on the NIST framework. Let's look at the 3 central pillars that are highlighted there: protect, detect, and respond. Historically, cybersecurity has focused on protection and preventing threats, exploiting weaknesses within organizations. So this is changing as organizations accept that due to gaps in defenses and paired with today's attack sophistication, threats will enter an organization and often remain undetected for weeks or even months, exfiltrating data and moving laterally across the network, and getting access to critical assets. Businesses are increasingly focusing on threat detection and response to address this risk. So what will detection and response give me? One, becoming proactive in hunting for threats, not wanting them to obviously become an impact. Two, lower the mean time to detect. So limit the damage and meet the compliance regulations sooner and more effectively and efficiently. And thirdly, learn how an incident occurred. So protection can be adopted and adapted continually to prevent it from occurring again. Let's quickly cover threat detection and response, effectively the ultimate goal of which is to detect attacks on sensitive and neutralize incidents before they become a breach. EDR, endpoint detection and response, a term first coined roughly in 2013 for tools that were primarily focused on detecting and investigating suspicious activities on hosts and endpoints. XDR, or extended detection as response, as we call it here at Sophos, an extension or evolution of the next phase of EDR. It provides for the collection and correlation of data across many security layers: endpoint, email, server, cloud workloads, the network, backed with a single fully integrated management interface. And thirdly, we've got the MDR piece, which is managed detection and response. EDR and XDR are technologies or tools. MDR allows for the facilitation or the provision of these tools for customers as a service. Now, finally, I've included SIEM in there as well, a complementary solution. It gathers events and logs a wide array of network and security solutions and provides a single, almost like wide angle lens. It doesn't always get very deep when trying to implement and kick off a threat hunt process within an organization. All are key. Now, importantly as well, what process is involved in threat detection and response? OODA, with the military. So the OODA Loop stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. And it's at the heart of threat detection. Observe, what do you see in the data? Orient, context, the behavior. How does it map against known attack tactics? Decide, is it malicious, suspicious, or benign? Is it a false positive? Act, what do we need to do? Mitigate, neutralize, and then again, re-enter the loop and start again. Observe, orient, decide, act. Now, the OODA loop is used across the 5 core components of threat detection and response. Firstly, prevention. To be effective, it involves knowing where the critical data and resources are and ensuring that they're all protected to an appropriate level. That technology is configured correctly, kept up to date, etc. So all part of the prevention. Having that robust prevention technology reduces the number of alerts that we need to wade through, both legitimate as well as false positives, so that a security team is better able to focus on the right signals and the signals that matter to take appropriate actions when needed. Secondly, collection of security events, alerts, and detections. Data is essentially the fuel that powers threat hunting. Without the right type or without the right volumes and the right quality of data and signals, it's incredibly difficult to accurately identify potential indicators of compromise. So often we don't know initially where a signal is malicious or benign. So if it's malicious, at what point chain does it sit, right? This is where orientation is necessary to understand the context before deciding what course of action to take. Thirdly, prioritization of signals that matter. So essentially, avoid being overwhelmed by the huge amounts of data and failing to spot the correct item at the right time, and which items warrant closer inspection are all key. That prioritization process. Effectively, that feeds into, fourthly, the accurate investigation. So once you've isolated these key signals, it is time to add the specific insight. So you can measure what you have discovered against industry. For example, the MITRE attack framework or the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain model. things that we should be considering as part of investigation. Where are we detecting the signals and where are they coming from? Is this what we're expecting to see, or is it anomalous type of behavior? Is the data moving laterally, and is it in the expected direction? And is it going to or from a known device? And the list goes on and on. So the outcome of investigation will enable us as security professionals to decide if the signal is a known or potential attack indicator, and secondly, what the unfolding attack process is likely to be. Fifth, and finally, action. If it is in fact a threat, we need to effectively kick off two things. One, mitigate the immediate issue. So, put out the fire effectively. And this could be delete, remove an affected machine from our network, remove network access, zone off an attacker, so on and so forth. Again, a huge amount of remediation issues that need to be taken into account as part of action. And secondly, identify and address the root cause. Was an RDP port left open potentially? Is there a misconfigured cloud workload somewhere? Are people, falling victim to phishing attacks continually? All key and critical pieces that create and form part of the incident response process. So if that's the goal of threat detection and response, let's look at one method, and specifically we'll kick off with the EDR piece. So as we discussed, threat detection and response depends on. Now, this both reduces the chance and breaches of an attack, as well as whether it's a true or false investigation that you must perform. On the host, we achieve this with InterceptX, our leading next generation cybersecurity solution for endpoints, servers, mobile, and cloud. And basically with that, it forms part of the same agent as InterceptX and extends that prevention into deeper detection and response capabilities on the endpoint. Now, from an EDR solution, is it right for my business? Again, EDR is a product, and as you see there's a number of key points that need to be delivered upon in order for an EDR to be effective. It's a product or technology that can equip your existing team to achieve much more and much faster in terms of detection and response to endpoint and server related incidents and threats. Of course, with EDR, this is driven by your own internal security operations team and requires team members to actually have the depth and skill necessary to investigate and take action, and the relevant response processes are followed. Resource intensive, and if not equipped with the correct skills and the correct tools and processes, effectively you'll find to be highly, could be at times ineffective if not complemented by the right people, processes and tools. So urgent need for human threat. Now, Vance and Bourne Group ran a survey across 3,000 CISO and security managers globally earlier this year, and it showed that organizations understand the importance of human-led threat hunting to provide better proactive detection of threats. Now, virtually all survey responders appreciated the fact and were really positive on this particular approach. 48% indicated that they already incorporate human-led threat hunts in their security procedures to identify attacker activity that may not be detected by security tools. Example, the SIEM, their existing endpoint protection, firewall, etc. Now, a further 48% plan to implement it. Respondents are also very alert to the urgency of deploying human-led threat hunting, where a whopping, practically 100% plan to implement and are looking into it over the next 12 months. So a key focus area. EDR, moving into XDR. So extended detection and response is the natural evolution of EDR. And you would have heard over the last sort of 12, 18 months, the term XDR being coined in industry. It's built on the EDR concepts, but has extended data across many security layers, ranging from an endpoint, email, server, cloud workloads, network, effectively stitching logs and telemetry from all those layers to allow more actionable intelligence and increase the efficacy of the response. Now, in their Innovation Insight for XDR report, Gartner highlighted 3 primary requirements: centralization of normalized data, correlation of security data into incidents, and centralized incident response capability that changes the state of individual products. These 3 requirements are built on one foundation: integration within your security controls, and that's key. Now, unfortunately, as you can see from this particular slide here, it's a bit of an eye chart, but probably not uncommon for us. Our industry doesn't make things easy. There are, it is probably one of the most fragmented industries in terms of options that are available. For every there are many startups, and this dynamism is great for innovation, but not necessarily the best outcome for integration. Even before XDR was defined, Sophos had an approach that aligned with the key requirements, and it's called Sophos Synchronized Security. The many layers of security controls are all monitored, reported, and managed from effectively a single point called Sophos Central. If we go back to those 3 XDR requirements from Gartner, 1, centralization of normalized data. Well, this from across the Sophos products, and we're working with other vendors to add even more context into our XDR strategy, all that feed into and hydrate our centralized data lake. Secondly, the point was made, correlation of security data into incidents. Correlation of individual product data with data feeds from Sophos Labs, backed by artificial intelligence, as well as Sophos Intelligence. Thirdly, Gartner's point, changing the state of individual security products. We have the concept of a security heartbeat. Now, products effectively with that heartbeat automatically adapt their policy temporarily as part of an incident response. So take, for example, imagine a firewall sees a suspicious traffic from an endpoint communicating to a C2 server. The firewall then has the ability to automatically inform Sophos Central, which will isolate the endpoint from being able to communicate with any other internal assets to prevent that lateral movement. Intercept X will then clean up the infection, and once complete, the host can be removed from isolation. This is just one of the many examples that reduces the time to respond from hours and hours, from hours down to effectively seconds. Now, EDR and XDR are not necessarily the perfect fit for every organization. And why I say that? Well, again, in a recent survey conducted by Vance and Bourne in the same survey, 54% of respondents, even with the great assistance of an EDR product and the benefits that it provides, to really get the most out of it, still needed the experienced cybersecurity professional. Now, this is particularly true with organizations of fewer than 500 employees, where the security team doesn't necessarily have the required skills or breadth of capability and cannot focus on detection and response. So due to the multiple tasks and the multifaceted approach of that particular role, they're not afforded with the luxury of just focusing on EDR response and incident management. They've got multiple balls to juggle. Secondly, 8 to 12 people have come up as the number that's required to staff a security operations center 24/7. Another statistic from Gartner that's come up. So very few organizations sub 500 can allocate and dedicate this many people to a SOC. So is 24/7 necessarily required, or is it overkill? Unfortunately, it's not overkill. It's no coincidence that many attacks happen really late in the evening, 2 a.m. on a Saturday morning or the beginning of a long weekend, as attackers know that it's easier to compromise a prospective attack and get in, due to the reduced state of alert within organizations. Now, it is also an issue for larger organizations, as even they struggle to recruit and retain, and that's the important one, the retention of good quality cybersecurity professionals. This in particular is true in Asia Pacific, where again, ISC Squared reported there is a shortage of 2.1 million cybersecurity professionals, or 73% of the global shortage. So it's a pretty big problem. Now, Sophos saw the outcome of this shortage in our own report of 5,000 global IT managers that was run by Vance and Bourne in 2020. 81% of survey respondents said their ability to find and retain skilled IT professionals is a major challenge for their organization. Splitting this out further, 54% said that it's a significant challenge, and over a quarter report it was their single biggest challenge. So, again, testament and reiterating that it's a big problem. Now, the shortage of cybersecurity experts has driven the adoption of a managed detection and response solution, or where EDR and XDR are essentially provided as a service. So it's a very fast-growing sector, and again, Gartner indicating 50% of organizations will be using an MDR service by 2025. At Sophos, our MDR service is called Managed Threat Response. It adds people and process to the technology of EDR, extension of an in-house team to hunt for and respond to cyber threats around the clock. And you see here, outsourced service of experts. It augments and perfectly complements your existing security operations team with the expert knowledge. 24/7 threat hunting, which is key and pivotal, proactive posture improvement, and the proactive notification, collaboration, and that's the key point there, the collaboration and human-led intelligence with your in-house incident response teams. Now, incident response is an important part of a good MDR, but as you know, the emphasis should be on the proactive detection to minimize the need for incident response. Now, average time to detect through Sophos MTR, 2 minutes. You got 20 minutes for average time to respond, and approximately 60 minutes for average time to resolve. Now, here is a true story from December 2020 of an SME of a few hundred employees that purchased our MTR service in the aftermath of suffering a breach. Now, like many organizations this size, they only had one IT generalist, also trying to be the security expert. So not surprisingly, that left security gaps, and they were exposed, which is what happened here. And also it came out of his depth when it came to the actual incident response cycle and having an active incident response plan up and running. First symptoms, they noticed servers running slowly with high CPU usage. It turns out that there was an attack on their AD server with other servers being used for crypto mining. Now, they decided to take the company off the internet as a precaution, and that was the right approach for them. The effect of doing that, customers, contacts, etc., could not access them via their external website or via email. Additionally, their remote workers couldn't connect in. So, estimated cost of roughly $40,000 per day on being offline. They got in touch and contacted Sophos. Effectively, our managed threat response group assisted in putting out the fire by removing the attacker's access and removing malware from the impacted systems and searching for any other indicators of compromise. They reviewed their environment and identified misconfigured security controls that was the root cause of the breach. Now, at the end of it all, the customer feedback that came back was MTR was able to accurately detect and take action, which is important, against the persistence on our systems within a day or two. So a task that would have taken us weeks or months. At $40,000 a day, you can see how much weeks and months would have cost them, as well as the reputation damage that would follow on. So today, Sophos, has taken the detection and response load off the sole IT guy, and he's focused on his role and continues to put together improvement mechanisms and improve their security posture and security operation. So in recapping threat detection and response, this is the slide from earlier on today. What's the answer to the question? Which is right for my organization? EDR, MDR, or XDR? Well, two other questions that we must ask and think about when it comes to getting that fundamental answer, whether one of those three approaches is correct. How integrated are my security controls? Can they collate their data into a data lake and then correlate across them to produce incidents and automatically respond to contain and neutralize a threat? If the answer is yes, then that additional context and value over EDR. Additional to that, do I have the appropriately skilled staff and the appropriate numbers of staff to manage, monitor, and respond and run that environment end to end? Second question, with either EDR or XDR, can I hire and retain enough highly skilled cyber experts and staff to assist with staffing this every minute of the year? And does it make economic sense? EDR and XDR are key technologies and requirements as part of prevention, detection, and a response strategy, but you must remain responsible for the people and the processes. So again, to that particular answer, if the answer is no, the fact that you can't hire quick enough or enough people with the right skills, then you'll get much more value and a value add and the benefit from an MDR service such as managed threat response. And that brings me to the end of today's session. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the remainder of today's presentations that are coming up. I'll throw back to Isaac, and I think we may be open for one or two quick questions.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much, Phil, for that presentation. That was fantastic. Thank you for sharing your insights. And I'd just like to thank also you and Sophos for being involved in the event and being partners with us, because without you guys, we can't hold events like this. So thank you so much.
No, thank you.
No worries. So we have a question for you. And it is, one of the very real challenges for today's businesses are that the vast majority are not large enough to either maintain a dedicated cybersecurity resource, nor to afford many of the products and services that the industry thinks that they should. What are your recommendations for today's medium businesses?
So in that type of scenario, as I touched on during the presentation, I think if you take the whole approach into account, definitely an MDR type service to complement the existing EDR technologies or XDR technologies that might be running on-prem would be required to assist with that. Working with your integration partners to get that best practice advice, or leveraging the expert knowledge of vendors such as ourselves to assist with guidance down that track is a good approach, and will help with obviously the challenge of the limited resource and capability that they've got.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Phil, for answering that, and thanks again for being involved in our event and presenting and sharing your insights. I hope everyone took away something from that, if they listened in and got something that they can take back to their organizations for future use. There is one more question actually that I will ask you while we have 50 seconds. Do your clients require security checks on your organizations as part of their own cybersecurity supply chain management?
Sorry, there was a beep that came in there. So do our clients...
Do your clients require security checks on your organization as part of their own cybersecurity supply chain management?
Look, it's a question that's popped up recently with regards to the breach of the SolarWinds attack that came up. Now, with that, it's not like a mandated requirement, but we do have briefs and official statements that outline how we comply and what we do to minimize and effectively reduce the impact of those types of attacks.
Fantastic. Thanks for answering that. And with that said, thank you again, Phil, for being involved in the event and sharing your insights. And also thank you to Sophos for being involved as well. So we really appreciate having you guys involved.
No worries, Isaac. Thanks very much. And yeah, thank you everyone for your attendance. Any other questions? My details are available online.
Yeah, fantastic. And everyone, you can connect with all our presenters, including Phil, on LinkedIn. And if you've got any other questions, you can ask them there. Otherwise, as I said, the resource hub is available for you guys to reach out to Sophos if you guys wanted to ask any questions further post-event. So with that said, we've got our final session of the day. So that's in the next session. So doing what everyone's been doing for the rest of the morning, move into the next one, and I'll see you guys there in just a minute. But thanks again, Phil.
Thanks, Isaac. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.